I've got a new toy today to review. It is another pour over coffee kettle, variable temperature kettle with a gooseneck, and it's by Brewista. So it's a smart pour variable temperature kettle, gooseneck spout, 1.2 liter capacity. So we'll see what kind of features this has as we tap into the review more. But I'm just going to do a quick unboxing here after I finish reading over the features. So there is an auto start feature, so that is really cool that you can get the water hot right first thing in the morning. And I'm gonna say that that is what I'm most excited to try, because I don't like waiting for the water to get hot in the morning. Could still have fresh coffee, but at least your water will be ready for you as soon as you get up. It's a little bit more information for you. Okay, let's dive in. A quick start guide. Tells you what's in the box. Looks to be pretty visual. Cool stuff. We have our manual, so the full manual with the 1-year limited warranty. Alright, here's the kettle. So yeah, it looks a little bit bigger than Bonavita's. Let's take a look at the side by side. So yeah, a little taller, not by much though, a little bit wider. And the handle is different, hopefully more ergonomic than the Bonavita, which I've definitely experienced some cramping with. Let's check out the base plate. The base plate looks to be thinner than Bonavita's. I know this isn't necessarily a comparison video, but right, so there's the control panel. Looks like we have a temperature adjustment. We have programmable setting. You can switch between Fahrenheit and Celsius, just like on the Bonavita. And I'm not sure what either of these guys mean yet. And we've got our top. Top feels pretty light. Interesting difference. Might as well just show you the full comparison, but bigger top, the bigger little handle. I guess that's a weird thing to say, bigger little handle, but one of the big issues with the Bonavita was this rusting. I don't see that any of this material is different. I mean, both stainless steel, both have 3 holes here. So we'll see how that does. And that is everything that comes in the box. Okay, so I lied. There was one more thing that came in the box, and that was a descaler here. So that's nice that they include that. All right, we'll be right back with the first demo. Okay, step 1 is to place the lid so that the 3 holes are facing away from the handle. So the clock resets pretty much every time the cord goes out. So let's see, 2:42 is the current time. Okay, clock is set. Okay, we're gonna press the on-off button to begin the heating cycle. Then we're gonna let this boil, pour it out, and then it should be ready for first use. Okay, so you can hear that the kettle beeps once it's reached temperature. If I remove it from the base, that's when it gets into clock mode, just like with the Bonavita variable temperature kettle. So a little bit disappointing that it doesn't have some kind of Bluetooth capabilities, but I guess at this price point, I'm not surprised. I was hoping that I wouldn't have to rely on just kind of trusting that it will stay at 208 degrees Fahrenheit once removed from the base. You're going to be losing a lot of heat though, so generally you want to start at a higher temperature than what you thought you needed. So if you're trying to target like at 205 degrees, you might want to go all the way up to boiling, or 208, which is what I'm doing here. Okay, so let's quickly go over what I like and dislike about the Brewista Gooseneck variable temperature kettle. However you want to mix those words around, those are the main features, and this is the reason you would consider this kettle to begin with. One, the gooseneck gives you a nice controlled pour, perfect for pour over coffee. If you're using just a standard kettle, you're gonna not be able to really slow down your pour and make sure that all the grounds are evenly saturated without creating too much agitation. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit anecdotal. It's kind of one of those things in the industry that might be blown out of proportion, but it does make the pour over process more controlled. So if you're considering this kettle, probably the main draw is the gooseneck itself. Of course, you can get a manual kettle, but electric has some benefits. One of those benefits being this hold temperature feature. So I didn't talk about this before because I wasn't really sure when I first did the unboxing what these two buttons meant here, but this is the same hold temperature button that the Bonavita had, where you basically put your kettle on the base, you press start, and then hold. And then once the kettle reaches temperature, it will maintain that temperature for up to an hour before automatically shutting off. And since I'm here and hadn't explained what this guy means, this is just how you set the temperature. Looks like it has 5 presets, 5 or 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 presets. I believe the Bonavita had 8. Of course, you can manually adjust using the plus and minus icons. But this is the other, well, I guess I should say this is the main benefit of an electric kettle, is that you can do stuff like this, and the variable temperature element allows you to experiment with different water temperatures. If you are of the camp that believes boiling water is going to over extract your coffee, in other words, bring out too many bitter notes, then this is a good option because you can target a certain temperature, particularly a lower temperature, to get the extraction that you're after. Of course, I don't think water temperature is the most important variable in the extraction formula, if you will, but that is another topic for another day. So, to recap, Gooseneck Kettle is the main draw, main reason you would consider a kettle like this to begin with, but then the added features such as the variable temperature would be the next step, as well as it being electric. Now, this is where we get into territory of how the Brewista is different from the competition. So things that I like about it that other kettles don't necessarily have. The number one thing that I like about this kettle is the capacity. 1.2 liters is just about as big as it gets in this sandbox. So with my Bonavita, I definitely had some issues with the 1 liter capacity not being enough. At times I would be brewing a bigger batch through my Chemex, or say doing a side-by-side experiment comparing 2 different brew methods, and I would simply run out of hot water. Has not been an issue with that extra 0.2 liters through the Brewista. So if you are making larger batches of pour over coffee or just don't like refilling your kettle frequently, this extra 0.2 liters or just general large capacity will go a long way. The second thing that I really would say sets this kettle apart from the competition is the programmability. So this is a plus side, but I'm going to also say it's a downside. So the plus is that you have the ability to set a time for it to start boiling your water or start heating up your water. That's all well and good, but if you're somebody like me that is frequently unplugging their appliances, then it's going to be a real drag and not really worth the effort to have to reset the clock every time you unplug and then reset your program time. So while it is a nice feature, I think it's basically useless in my particular case because I do unplug this appliance from the wall pretty regularly. So that can go either way for you depending on your situation, but it is worth noting that this is a feature that most other variable temperature kettles, I think pretty much every variable temperature kettle at the time of this review does not have. So that's really one of the main things that sets it apart. I also think that this is a step up in terms of being more ergonomic from its predecessor, which again, I've talked about ad nauseum here in this review, but the Bonavita variable temperature kettle, I had some cramping issues in the past with its handle. I think that this handle is a step up. It's more comfortable. I don't know why, but that I would say is one of the major benefits here. So those are the things that I like, and I think arguably make this worth the extra $25 or so compared to the Bonavita. Again, this isn't a comparison video, but we are talking about a kettle that was basically engineered as an improvement upon that original kettle that kind of disrupted the space, if you will. So things I don't like so much, and I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky here. So one of the things I don't like is this LED screen here. I found it harder to read than its predecessor, the Bonavita, which used red instead of orange. Sometimes I have to squint just to see it. Depending on the lighting in my awful kitchen, it could be an issue. So not a huge deal breaker, but I thought it was a step backwards. I also am not a big fan of the general interface. I thought it got a little bit more complicated, to be honest. Even just having this icon here versus one that says hold, I thought was totally confusing, at least if you're not going to bother reading the instruction manual. I think that after using a kettle like this, you're going to eventually figure out how it works and not have to struggle too much. But in terms of like out of the box ease of use, I thought it was lacking. And then here comes the nitpicky part. The things that I was really hoping for in this latest iteration of a variable temperature kettle is the ability to tell me what the temperature is in the kettle even after I've removed it from the base. I imagine that that is technically, well, I should say from a technical perspective, probably pretty difficult to do, but it's still something I would have liked to see. The last issue I had with this kettle was that from time to time when I started the little stopwatch here, it would just abruptly shut off. And I found that pretty annoying, especially when I was timing my brews, to all of a sudden lose the time that I was recording. So that might just be an issue with my particular unit, but just something to keep in mind. Maybe others have experienced that as well. This isn't an issue I had with my Bonavita. So in the end, I am a fan of the Brewista variable temperature kettle. One thing I didn't mention is that the lid has not seen any rusting issues, unlike the Bonavita. So I've been using this kettle for about 3 months now, and it has basically replaced the Bonavita. And I think the main reason for that, to be honest, is the capacity itself. The bigger capacity, I think, was enough to make me decide to just roll with this one ever after. Having said that, my Bonavita has started to show some issues, particularly with just holding temperature, and it just defaults to boiling now. So it's no longer really working as well as it was 5 years ago. So that's obviously another big factor in it. Do I think that this kettle is worth the extra $25? I would say yes, if you are the type that requires larger batches of hot water, or you are B, somebody that could really benefit from the programmability feature. Aside from that, I don't think it really brings enough extra to the table to justify that extra $25. At least that's what the pricing difference is at the time of this review. So, have you used this kettle? What do you think about it? Do you have questions, comments, concerns? Leave them right below. And I hope this was helpful. And until next time, that, once again, my friends, is the Brewista variable temperature Gooseneck Kettle.